Hello and welcome to another episode of Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. On this episode of Freshwaves, we'll be talking with the one and only Jason Rumball, who is, was, and always will be our technical producer here at Freshwaves. Also joining us in the studio today, the mock studio of a pandemic over the phone, is Nadia Zaidi. And Nadia is a documentary filmmaker. And we're happy to have Nadia and Jay together on Fresh Waves because Jay is one of the stars of a new documentary that Nadia has done called 8, The Gift of Life. Good morning, Jay. Good morning, Nadia.
Good morning, Brenda.
Well, it's nice to have you guys in our mock studio of telephone lines.
Well, thank you for having us, Brenda. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So Nadia, we're going to get to all of the details about you, but because we're going to leave Jason in the background for a little bit, I'll introduce him before you and I get talking. How's that?
Oh, sounds perfect.
Jay, you've been with the show for 10 years now, and you are a volunteer at Whistle FM in Stouffville. You also are an amazing volunteer for the Gift of Life Foundation and anything that has to do with organ donation because you are a kidney recipient. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. Well, 21 years ago, back in January of 2000, my sister, she gave me a kidney. She surprised me on my birthday just a couple months before that to tell me the great news that she was going to donate a kidney to me, and I had no idea she was going to do this. And we went through the transplant January 18th, 2000, and the kidney lasted about 19 and a half years. I've had a really good 19 and a half years, and now I'm currently on dialysis again, doing 3 days a week dialysis, 4 hours per treatment, and coming up on 2 years this coming August. So, hanging in there, but really grateful for my sister's gift of life.
That's fantastic. So, Nadia,
yes,
you are a documentary filmmaker, and you've just done this documentary called 8, The Gift of Life, which is a really great title because donating someone's organs, they can save 8 people's lives, can't they? And then they can enhance the lives of many, many more people just by one donation.
Oh, absolutely. I think the title came to me so organically because it's just like what you say, one organ donor can save up to 8 lives and countless others. So it almost seemed like a no-brainer just to name it 8, The Gift of Life.
Yeah. Huh. So you're a documentary filmmaker. How did you get into documentary filmmaking?
It's really interesting, Brenda, that you ask because, I started off being that annoying kid that had a camera in everyone's face. I remember, shoving that thing in my family's face at the wrong time, always asking questions, extremely curious, loving to know people's stories. And I sort of nurtured that along the way and ended up majoring in broadcast journalism at Ryerson. And it was there that I had the opportunity to work on a documentary that examined Somali-Canadian gun violence. And that really secured my interest in documentary filmmaking. I loved it. And I never turned back. And then I went on to produce some local television. And along the way, I had people reaching out to me, wanting me to document their stories. And I find myself here. This is going to be my 3rd documentary film. So yeah, it's been quite the journey, but I feel so blessed to wake up every day and get to do this for a living.
So what kind of documentaries do you do?
My documentaries are actually based in social advocacy and public outreach. So I tackle issues like gun violence and bullying and poverty alleviation and the refugee crisis. And then this one has to deal with, of course, the organ donation crisis in our country.
And you feel that there is actually a crisis?
Oh, certainly. I certainly do. I think in speaking with so many Canadians, it's so apparent not only in speaking with Canadians who are impacted by the gift of life, but even with healthcare practitioners and researchers. It's so clear that while we do have most Canadians wanting to become organ donors, that there's a discrepancy between those who actually sign up to be and the transplants that occur in our country.
Yes, we spoke with Toby Boulay, who is Logan Boulay's dad, and the Logan Boulay effect is quite astounding that Logan, who died in the Humboldt crash, donated his organs, made his wishes known to his parents the year that he turned 21, and even before that, actually. And the result of him making that generous donation is that literally hundreds of thousands of Canadians have signed on since to be organ donors. And I think a film like the one that you have made is going to have the same kind of impact. People will see it and perhaps they'll be motivated then to act upon it.
Brenda, that's the hope. You know, if we can change even one life, and I know that sounds cliche, but you can't put a price on life. And if we can make a difference, even to one person, in shifting a perspective somewhere, then I feel like I've done my job.
And Jason, how did that make you feel being part of this? Because I know that you go, when it's not a pandemic, you're very active in the community. You go to these fundraising events and awareness events and you talk to people, you go to schools and you talk to students. How did it feel to be part of this documentary?
I think it feels great. I mean, just having seen the film and seeing the other families and realizing that, there's more people than just myself that are, going through this. And I think it's really important to, with like this film, it does highlight some of my other medical challenges as well, and how it all wraps up into my kidney disease and that. So people really get a sense of seeing me and what kidney disease does to me and how that it impacts my life and being on dialysis and stuff like that. So I think it's quite amazing to be part of this, and I just hope that it'll encourage people to sign up to be an organ donor. But hey, if somebody would like to help me out directly, that's great too.
Well, how do you mean help you out directly?
Well, just doing the same thing that my sister did, is a living donation. That people they have the option to donate their kidney right now rather than be having to wait. Could be another few years, or it's really hard to say right now how long of a wait it could be. So people watching, they could say, Jay could really use my help right now, and maybe I'd like to be a living donor.
That's an option, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah.
Okay, Nadia, tell us a little bit about the documentary. Walk us through the basic outline of it.
Certainly. So, this documentary deals with 3 families who've been impacted by the gift of life. And Jason's story is actually the guiding narrative. And in meeting with these brave Canadians, we're introduced to how the gift of life has impacted them. And then, of course, we examine the systemic issues and the barriers that are getting in the way of the numbers. And, we speak with a few practitioners who are kind of like the guiding forces in our country right now in dealing with Medicare and organ donation policy. So it really is quite an all-rounded, well-balanced film in that you're getting all the perspectives. You're getting to hear from, like I said, the Canadians that have been impacted by this decision, and you're also getting to hear from people who act as independent advocates on the issue, and then those who actually work within the system, like Trillium Gift of Life. So it's a pretty comprehensive doc. It sits at just under 40 minutes. And in examining Jason's poignant journey, we get to learn more about how the gift of life impacts Canadians.
It sounds like it's really interesting. I'm curious to see it. How do people get to see the documentary?
That's a great question. So right now, what Jason and I have been doing is we've been holding private Zoom meetings for people that want to sign up. We do it all on Jason's kidney group site on Facebook. And we just take to social media. We ask people that want to be part of joining in on the conversation, and they just RSVP, and we have the link sent out on Sunday nights at 8 in commemoration, of course, of the Title 8. And that's really how people can see it for now. With respect to sort of the widespread distribution, I'm kind of working with my team to figure out what the next steps will be with that. We don't know if we want to be going the festival route or we want to eventually put it up online for the masses. So yes, that's currently how you can view the film.
So in terms of Brenda's curious, how would you fund a film like this if you're just going to put it out there online, as you said, for the masses?
We're really a not-for-profit when we're dealing with issues like donations or gun violence or just advocacy-based issues, right? We're not looking to receive any sort of payment for that. Moving forward, if and should the opportunity arise that we want to take it a step further, perhaps become even more in depth with the issue, then we'll certainly be reaching out to financiers or people who feel that they may perhaps want to sponsor a portion of the film.
Yeah, that's interesting. So basically right now you do this out of the grace of your heart.
Yeah, and I really feel quite fortunate to get the opportunity to do this because for me, when anyone comes to me and they tell me that they have a story that they're entrusting myself to tell, there's no greater honor for me. I mean, people don't know me personally. So when they put that implicit blind trust, I do everything in my capacity to honor that, for sure.
And Jason, how did it feel to be put on display like this? I mean, it's one thing to go to dialysis and sit there and, with your all hooked up to the machines and do whatever you do while you spend the 4 hours. It's another thing completely to have a camera crew there filming you sitting there all hooked up to machines.
Right. I mean, I was, I was very comfortable doing it actually because I knew, people needed to see what I go through. Like I've put myself out there on Facebook just with my posts telling people, what I've been going through with my illnesses and stuff like that. So people have been keeping in touch with what I've been doing through my Facebook posts and that. So I figure, what's the harm in being on camera to, show the world, what I go through with dialysis. And Nadia came to the radio station one night and I was very short of breath and just to, look at that again, just to see, experience, what I had at the time. And I had to, pause, like being live on the radio, like you can't have too much dead air. So I had to take a, pause for a second and catch my breath and then keep on going. So people can see, I guess, the daily challenges, what I go through, and then they can see with my, spina bifida issues that I have trouble walking, and they can see the whole picture. So I really wanted people to, see the whole picture and just, not just to show that this is really what I'm going through right now.
Right, so that they have a better understanding of what it's really like.
Right.
So share with the listeners then some other of the health issues that you deal with on a daily basis.
I was born with spina bifida, and with that comes issues with your bladder and bowel and walking and things like that. Like my legs are very stiff, and so I've limited mobility. Like I have a mobility scooter that I use to, take for long trips around town and stuff like that. But also one of the things that can happen is kidney failure. Like half of the people born with spina bifida end up with kidney failure and being on dialysis. And like with my kidney, when I was born, like slowly over time, it started to deteriorate, and because of my bladder issues, I'm unable to empty my bladder, so I have to use a catheter. And like with my kidney issues, like for the first and second time, it was because of bladder, not emptying properly, and then the bladder putting pressure on the kidney to do the work. And eventually over time, the kidney wears down, and that. So it's a matter of seeing a variety of different specialists when I was a kid, bladder and bowel and orthopedics, and following me as I was growing up. And then once I became an adult, they didn't follow me as closely, but they still kept an eye on me for a while. And then eventually my kidney failed, so I had to go and see nephrologists and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of keeping on top of things. Like I still see a urologist now, but just a matter of keeping on top of things. Like I see a specialist for spina bifida down at Sunnybrook once a year, so he looks at the whole picture. Like say if I'm having trouble walking, or he notices some changes in my health, and he'll look into referring me to another specialist for a consult and things like that. So as I get older, they want to keep an eye on things to make sure that there's no deterioration of my my brain function and my limbs and things like that. So, but right now the main issue, of course, is my kidney.
And Nadia, what were the other issues of the families that you interviewed for the documentary?
Yeah, it's such a great question. But before I answer that, I just want to say that I think there is so much power in Jason being an open book and sharing those difficult moments. I mean, he just explained to you, Brenda, that there are moments in the film where you will see him visibly breathless. Us being at the radio station and seeing that, there were times where he couldn't deliver that dialogue because his kidney is failing. And I think that we're not interested ever in clickbait. What we're interested in is advocacy and empathy. And empathy being very crucial there, because that's always the first step toward changing policy, changing attitudes, and fostering a culture of awareness in our country. The issues that we explored, sort of the families that I spoke with, one of the gentlemen that is featured in the film, his wife actually needed 2 liver transplants, and she was the recipient of 2 gifts of life.
Wow.
And it was quite remarkable because, you hear 1 being rare, but 2 is it's something else. And we spoke with a family whose mother had passed away. She was a family physician, and she gave her 2 lungs to a young woman.
Well, every year in the month of April, Jason and I have done a series of organ donation awareness shows, and every year I am absolutely blown away by the dedication, by the stamina, by the incredible medical miracles that we have seen. A man with a double lung transplant who plays hockey now twice a week. And we had another woman who had a double lung heart transplant. And she made it up and down the stairs faster than Jay did.
Oh my God, that is so remarkable.
Yeah, and it's funny because she had such a major, dramatic, incredible surgery. And again, because someone made the move to donate their organs, they had signed all the papers and went to beadonor.ca and signed up to be an organ donor. And because of that, she was able to get her double lung heart transplant. And the biggest side effect from the surgery was that they had nicked her vocal cords when they went down her throat with the intubation tube, and she had a raspy voice when she spoke. Other than that, she was doing remarkably well.
Oh my God.
It was such a great story. I mean, we left the studio that day literally dancing. I mean, just it was
Oh, I
just such a
bet.
great story, and she was such an inspiration. It was just amazing. Amazing.
It's incredible. I mean, it changes your perspective on life as well, because, sometimes we find that when an issue doesn't affect us, we sort of are like bystanders to it, right? I
Right.
mean, we see it, we acknowledge it, but we don't, go any further with it. So I think that even in working on a lot of these issues, it's just really enhanced my own perspective on what it means to be human and to really be a lot more grateful and a lot more accepting just as a person. So yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying, Brenda.
Hmm. Now, do you find that that's the way it is when you do all of your documentaries or your documentaries thus far, that it really has an impact on you personally and how you view the world?
It has such a tremendous impact on me. I mean, I can't begin to explain just in the various ways that it impacts my perspective. And I think it not only in educating me on issues that I would otherwise have been ignorant to, but just in appreciating the tenacity of the human spirit and recognizing how powerful we are as people. And, we see this during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we see the strength in numbers and the strength when humanity is at its greatest. And I think that's what these films really remind me.
It's interesting that you mentioned the pandemic. Is that maybe on the roster for a new documentary?
That's such a great question, Brenda. So many people have asked me, about creating possibly, a film on the pandemic. But I think what's really important is letting people know that while we are dealing with COVID-19, which is, one of the biggest detriments that we're facing to humanity right now, that there's so much countless suffering that's occurring. And, that is like being on the transplant list, people not having time. So it's always important to ground us to what we're going through, regardless of whether that's COVID-19. All illness does not stop, unfortunately. It just continues. And so we're hoping that in spreading the message about the organ crisis and the film at large, that we understand that we need more resources in this country, especially right now, because we see what's going on in hospitals. And it's such a big thank you to our frontline healthcare workers who really are today's unsung heroes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to take our first little break here. This morning we are speaking with Nadia Zaidi and Jason Rumball. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Remember, if you'd like to hear this show again, you can go to freshwaves.ca, or you can check out our YouTube channel at Freshwaves Radio. Capital F, capital R for radio. Now let's get back to the show. We're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we're speaking with Nadia Zaidi and Jason Rumball. Nadia is a documentary filmmaker, and Jason's a really good friend of mine. He's also a transplant recipient. He has a sister's kidney, which is the most precious gift anyone can ever give. Jay, do you have one of those teary-eyed moments in the documentary when you can't ever tell this story without a tear in your eye?
Oh yeah, and it's always the same, same part where I've, when I've shared my story with the kids at the school there, and it always happens at the same part where, when my sister told me the news, she told me on my birthday, we're celebrating, and she took me in the kitchen just to take a break from the celebrations, and that's, when she told me, and every time that part comes up, I'm always teary-eyed. So you're going to see the emotions in the film on that one.
Well, and I hope we do, because that was such an amazing moment. And that moment gave you 19 and a half years of life.
Unbelievable.
It sure did. Quite amazing. Because doctors said, Jay's going to, maybe, 10 years at the most. And here I am, 19 and a half years, exceeding the doctor's, predictions there. So And I think that's the way I've always been, that, when doctors predict that, it's only going to be this long, that I always exceed the expectations.
Well, when you were born, they didn't expect you to live very long, did they?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. And look, I'm, going to be 45 in November, so I'm all grown up now and, still chugging along, of course, hooked up to a dialysis machine a few times a week, but I'm determined to, get off dialysis very soon and get back to living my life with another kidney.
Mm-hmm. Now, Nadia, tell me something, just another curiosity question here. You're doing a documentary. You say it's 40 minutes. And one of the, I think, most grueling things about dialysis is the length of time that people are actually hooked up to the machine. You're talking 4 or 5 hours at a time and 3 days a week. How do you convey that passage of boring time in such a short documentary?
It's always important to understand, as a filmmaker, that you're never trying to make anything entertaining. As much as we're in the business of telling and selling stories, we have to be very mindful of the fact that this may only appeal to a very niche audience, and that's okay. We want as many eyeballs on this because we want advocacy and awareness, but we're not going to try cloud that with a bunch of theatrics or, fancy edits. We want to tell the story as it is. And, you see Jason at dialysis in this film, and he really does the best job of conveying what he goes through, just by telling us, I'm sitting here at dialysis and it's several hours and we see the machine and the machinery that he's attached to. And he stares into the camera at one point, a very poignant moment, and tells us, if he got a kidney tomorrow, this could be the end of it. So I think it's just that simplicity and just telling true stories in the flesh, mm-hmm. and not trying to paint an alternative picture. It is what it is, and dialysis isn't fun.
No, it isn't. But I find it interesting that time is a curious thing when it comes to film,
Oh, certainly. You're right about that, Brenda.
So when I was asking you about how you convey the passage of time, there's like, you're right. There are those techniques, really weird edits, or there's that time lapse photography and everything where everything's happening in fast motion. But I guess one of the things that strikes me about dialysis is it's so boring. There's just sitting there. You can't move. You can't go anywhere. You're just sitting there. And even through that, Jason still manages to have a good time at dialysis. Jason?
That blows me away. I mean, seeing his spirit when I reached there that day, myself and the film crew, I saw just Jason beaming with joy. And I think that's something that emanates across screen, is that, despite the difficult moments, Jason makes the best of every situation.
He sure does.
About, watching the leaves and the rafters and catching podcasts and just doing the best with what he can. And I think that just really speaks to his spirit, which is so grand and something to be admired, certainly.
Yeah, that's true. We call him Happy Jay. I think. I think there should be a cutout of Jason at the top of every elevator when you get off to go to any office building, because you cannot pass Jason Rumball without smiling.
100%.
Yeah, Happy Jay posters everywhere. So how do you choose your people for the documentary? Did you already know the other people going into this documentary?
No, it's actually funny. The Trillium Gift of Life, I reached out to them and I explained that I was working on this film. And one of the coordinators hooked me up with one of the families that had gone through the Trillium Gift of Life system. And the other gentleman is someone I reached out to because he does a lot of advocacy and he has his own organization. And it just so happened that he was motivated by his own wife's journey. That wasn't very favorable in the system. So it was kind of serendipitous. Of course, Trillium did put me in touch with one family, but then the other people that either reached out to me or I reached out to them.
Okay. So do people know that this is what you do for a living? Do the stories kind of come to you, or do you really go out and hunt down a good story?
It's a mix of both. One of my first documentaries, someone had actually seen a show that I had on Rogers TV, and he had just the most fascinating story, of being a former refugee and escaping a refugee camp. And he was so adamant that I tell a story, and it just went from there. Most of the times, it kind of does end up just coming through the grapevine. Either someone has seen something that I've done, or they've seen a link to my work, and they reach out to me. But then, of course, while I want to tell everyone's stories, if it was up to me, I have to be a little bit selective, of course, because I really want to always showcase those issues that I feel don't get enough awareness and spotlight on them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's nice that you've come on to Freshwaves. We do air on Whistle FM, which is the community radio station, and the community radio in Canada was invented on social advocacy and social awareness of issues, and for those who were marginalized and were not getting heard. That was how community radio got its start. So it's just seems to be fitting, doesn't it?
Yes, and I think there's no greater platform truly than community programming. I think it all starts at the grassroots level, and I think that there's so much power in that. In sort of communal sharing and just connecting with like-minded people. So it's a pleasure, Brenda, to be on your show. Thank you so much for having us today.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure, Nadia. Thank you for being here. Does your little film, I don't mean to trivialize it, does your film company have a name?
It does. I'm operating under Real Voice Productions.
Okay.
And that's a company that I founded along with a couple partners. That's dedicated to social advocacy and awareness through film.
Great. So, Jason, when Nadia approached you, what did you think of this idea?
I liked the idea. She sent me a message on Facebook Messenger there of one of her previous films that she did. So I thought, I'm going to check it out, and I was blown away at how well the film was produced, and such an amazing story. And then so Nadia and I got talking, and I told her about my situation that with my failing health with my kidney, that this would be a great opportunity for me to share my story. And I've been in the local Stouffville paper and also on the city TV news there, so I think that was great to get the word out that my kidney's failing, I'm going to need dialysis soon, and because of the pandemic and different issues along the way, this film has been a little ways in the making, but it's great to finally have it out there. But I thought this is a great opportunity for me to share my story, and I'm glad that Nadia and I connected like this. We used to volunteer together at Rogers TV, so I've known her, since then, and to reconnect and work on this film together has been such an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you were quite excited about it when you were doing it. And do you think Mary Jo might have had a bit of an influence on you there after you saw her film about the underground organ trade, and they featured her, and we got to see a day in the life of Mary Jo? Did that help pave the way for you to feel brave enough about inviting a film crew into your world?
Yeah, like just seeing the way Mary Jo handled it. She's very natural on screen there. You could tell that this is really what she's going through. I've never done the home dialysis thing, so for her to have that home dialysis set up and for people to see her putting the needles in and that sort of thing, and it made it feel more real. And having met Mary Jo, and she's such an amazing person. So I think, she's definitely had an influence on me saying, yeah, I'd love to do a documentary just like that one.
Mm-hmm. And Nadia, when you're putting together the documentary, were you a little nervous going into like a medical facility, and was there special things that you had to go through in order to be allowed to go in and things like that?
Definitely. I think there's always nerves surrounding, when you're a complete outsider in terms of I'm not a medical practitioner. So for me, my anxiety really came in wanting to present information with the highest level of accuracy. So if to answer your question, that's actually where my nervousness stemmed from. In terms of going into, a facility, I do know that when we had to go shoot at the dialysis clinic, that there were quite a few loopholes to go around, and understandably so. I mean, they don't want to be having people in there being intrusive while other people are getting treatment. So, yeah, it was a process, but it was certainly worth it.
Was it eye-opening for you?
Very much so. I mean, it's one thing to read something online or to even see a YouTube video, but it's an entirely different situation to go there and see what it takes and the technology and the machinery that sustains the human body and that acts really as a kidney. I mean, I was blown away, completely blown away.
Mm-hmm. Jason and I are always watching the news for any new developments on the mechanical kidney.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I mean, what they can do to harvest organs, it blows your mind.
Yeah.
The technologies that they're constantly developing and the ways that they do things. I mean, it's just absolutely astounding.
Mm-hmm. So in making this documentary, obviously you want to bring awareness to people who may not know that we do have, well, we have an issue in this country that we really need to have more people going to beadonor.ca and signing on to be a donor. But is there another side of it? Is there a side of also just meeting the people?
There's always two sides to every issue. And as much as I feel toward, the crisis and the families that are on the list right now, I have to always be objective and I have to examine all perspectives. I mean, the medical practitioners in our country, the policymakers, they're dealing with a very precarious situation. Harvesting an organ requires, it is such a process, Brenda, as I'm sure that you're aware, and the circumstance at which that transplantation can occur has to be almost perfect, if not ideal, in order for that to take place. So recognizing that the barriers are there because it is such a complex issue and such a complex process, I think is very paramount to painting an accurate picture. Absolutely. So yes, I hope I answered your question, but there's always two sides to every coin. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Because there's the dialysis part and there's kidney disease that, it just seems to be a multifaceted documentary, just in the making of it because of the people that are involved.
Yeah, and I mean, Dr. Lori West, who's, one of the leading transplant immunobiologists, she's featured in the documentary. And I think she puts it so brilliantly when she says that it's really an exchange of problems. I mean, you get a transplant and then you have to be placed on immunosuppressant medications for the rest of your life. And it really becomes a maintenance thing. And we don't always see that. We hear of the success stories, which are so beautiful, but we don't know what happens in the aftercare. Mm-hmm. And only the people who've gone through it, like Jason, can speak to that and attest to it always being a lifelong battle.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we get a little tainted with Hollywood these days. There's a lot of medical shows on TV and people who undergo, an 18-hour brain surgery, and the next day they're talking to you and laughing and smiling in bed as if they haven't done anything. Yeah. And you think to yourself, oh, that was nothing. That was so easy. But that's really not reality.
Not at all. If only it were.
Yeah.
But they trivialize and they glamorize and of course commercialize, what goes on really in the human body and surgery and sort of just reviewing the medical profession in a way that's not entirely accurate.
Mm-hmm. And so in a documentary, I think you're kind of, just by the very definition of a documentary, you're bound in a way to tell more of the truth. Is that for sure? Okay.
Oh, for sure. I think you should only ever be motivated to paint the most accurate picture, especially when you're trying to inform the public. I mean, you don't want to be putting misinformation out there and leading to any sort of misguided perceptions, because that not only hurts yourself, but that hurts everyone involved. And I think misinformation is a big part of the reason why we have a shortage in organ donations in this country as well. So we're really looking to be as much of a platform for educating people as much as we are looking to spread the message of hope and advocacy.
Okay. Now, your first documentary you said was about guns in Somalia?
Yes, it was actually completed while I was in my undergraduate program at Ryerson, and as part of my documentary film course, the producer actually came up with an incredible concept for a documentary on Somali-Canadian gun violence. And we see that this is an ongoing issue in our country, specifically in Toronto. And that was a very powerful film because it went on to be screened at Parliament Hill during a lunch and then used for sensitivity training as well.
And then, so you go from that into saving lives with transplants.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like just, a myriad of issues, but when you just look at what's out there, we never want people to look at these issues and think, oh, it's just a dire picture. There's pain and there's hope in the same breath, and so we want people to see the pleasures, the joys, the possibilities, but also the realities of what it is to be human.
Well, I think they both sound like fascinating topics. There is a third one, though.
Yes, that was the Congolese refugee crisis. That tells the story of a man who escaped the refugee camp in Nairogusu and, just has a phenomenal outcome. Today, he's giving back with everything. He works as a social aid worker with the Children's Aid Society. And so to come from being in a refugee camp to now someone who's an advocate for change is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you live a very interesting life.
Well, thank you. I actually feel that, the people that I have the honor and the privilege to interview are the true difference makers. And those are people that I'm just continually blown away and inspired from. So, while it seems very interesting and I do absolutely love what I do, I think it comes down to the people and the issues that really are the most enlightening.
Well, I'm glad that you feel that way, because I think once you have that attitude, it comes through in what you do in film. I think that's it's wonderful. And Jason, you were beaming the whole time that you were doing the documentary. You kept telling me of all of your adventures, and it sounded like you had a really good time doing this documentary.
I sure did. I mean, just going through all the, different scenes and that, having, Nadia come over to the house. And I also got to mention that my sister, Rochelle, she's in the documentary as well. So she, played a part in it as well. And she is more of a private person. So for her to be on, camera and stuff like that, I think it, took a lot. But I think it was very important for her to, to tell her story about how she was able to donate a kidney to me, and our relationship. My sister and I were very close, and for people that are watching the film, like say if they wanted to help me or maybe someone else they know that needs a kidney, what does the donor go through? So Nadia did a good job to kind of portray Rochelle's story as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a pleasure to speak with Rochelle, because you could just, not only did she give Jason the gift of life, I mean, what greater bond between two humans, but she was just so open about the process as well, and not afraid to explore that and convey that. So that was really enlightening and a real treat to speak with her.
Well, it's a unique situation in that a lot of people who are organ recipients don't get to meet their donor or don't know their donor. And in Jason's case, it's his sister. And so it really is a special bond, isn't it, Jay?
It sure is, yeah. Like my sister and I have always been close, and it's in 10 years since my mom passed away. My mom and I were very close, and when I also lost my dad as well. So in the film, you get to see the losses that I've Rochelle and I have experienced, losing my dad at a very young age, and then my mom 10 years ago. And, my sister throughout, like, she helped my mom to raise me. And now that my mom has passed on, my sister and I, we, live together here in Stouffville. And she's, her and I've always, been very close. And having gone through this whole kidney transplant thing, it's brought us even closer. So I'm really happy to, really lucky to have Rochelle in my life and have this very close relationship.
Well, I hope that Nadia does this documentary part 2. 8, The Gift of Life, part 2, because I hope that Jason will find a donor. I hope that Jason will get that new kidney that will give him a new lease on life and another 20 or 30 years more. And I think that documentary will be the one that I'll be on the edge of my seat for.
Oh my gosh, that is the hope, isn't it, Brenda? That
sure
Jason gets a kidney, and what a great gift that would be for us, because it's been an honor to know Jason and even to tell just a snippet of his story, which I hope that I've done justice in portraying that, because he's quite an astounding human being. He really is.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Nadia and Jason. Jason, you're always welcome on Freshwaves. And for anyone who listens to the show regularly, Jason's always in the background in one capacity or another, even if it's just to call me and say, you forgot to do this. But Nadia, thank you so much for joining us. I really look forward to seeing the documentary. And how do I go about doing that again?
Thank you, Brenda, for having me. It's been a pleasure. So we are having private screenings via Zoom, but you can join us on social media. You can go to Jay's kidney page. You can also go to Nadia Zaidi, type me in on LinkedIn. You'll see me. Or you can go on Facebook and see a link to the Zoom, in which, we want as many people coming as possible to view this. And then we don't know whether we're going to be going the festival route just yet, but we do know that eventually the film will be out there for public distribution.
So if they're on Facebook, media. What do they look up? Nadia Zaidi?
Yes, please look me up, Nadia Zaidi. You'll see multimedia journalist, filmmaker over there, and you can go to Jason Rumball, of course. You type in Jason, and he's all over. So you can certainly either see the link on his kidney page or one of his platforms or mine.
Jason, what's your kidney page? Jason Needs a Kidney, isn't it?
Jason Rumball Needs a Kidney.
Yeah.
Okay, and your last name, Jason, is really easy to remember. It's Rumball, and it's just that.
Yeah.
Rumball.
Rumball.
And Zaidi is Zaidi for anyone who is trying to find Nadia. Well, thanks both for joining us. We've had a really wonderful talk, and I hope to talk to both of you again sometime. And for all of the listeners out there, I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you for tuning in to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, signing off. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in today. This has been Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. You can listen to Fresh Waves anytime you like by going to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio, with a capital F for Fresh Waves and a capital R for radio. Fresh Waves Radio. And we're also at freshwaves.ca. And you can email me at bren@freshwaves.ca. You can also listen to us on Whistle FM at 7 a.m. on Saturday mornings. I know that's an awfully early hour, but if you are up, what a great way to start your day. Start your day with Fresh Waves, 7 a.m. on Saturday on Whistle FM. Have a terrific day, and we hope you join us again here at Fresh Waves.